Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Max Kids. We're going to be talking about healthy kids from A to Z today. We realize there could be lots of questions, and you can text some questions to Dr. Justine at 647-987-9355, and she'll be happy to answer your questions. I wanted to welcome Dr. Justine Blainey-Broker with us today. So Justine is the owner and primary chiropractor at Justine Blainey Wellness Center. She has an incredible wellness team that is there to help support you and your family. And she really believes that everyone deserves a healthcare team that focuses on prevention, optimal health, and open communication. Please help me welcome Dr. Justine.
Hello, everybody. We've got amazing information about all the stages from 0 to teenagers, about things to consider to have healthy families. And so we just got great information today, but upcoming, we have information about those leg cramps, those ones that wake you up in the middle of the night and you're just screaming in pain. It can happen in the calf, in the leg. So painful. We're going to talk about how to get more energy in the morning, not to need that Tim's coffee, or how to get your routine going. Fall defense makeover is a little bit of a longer talk about building your temple, building your energy, building your defense to be as healthy as possible. And then we're going to talk about a gluten-free diet, Crohn's disease, dealing with celiac, and how to deal with choosing gluten-free foods. So great information every week, something new for you. Share these are free. Today, we just want to remind you, our mission is to help everybody, to empower them for a healthier life naturally, that we want to be our best in order to be able to serve our loved ones, our communities, and really be out there to be able to make a difference to others. So we want to focus on that healthy, energized lifestyle, and we want to start with that with our children. You know, the habits start at a young age, and we know that this concern of chronic disease for children is growing and growing. Now, what I mean by this is beyond 3 months. Under 3 months, yes, we deal with infections and illnesses, typical childhood concerns that might be under 3 months. But when I'm talking chronic diseases, I mean greater than 3 months, affecting normal daily activities, might be frequent hospitalizations or extensive medical care. Now, this was me. I was in and out of the hospital every couple of weeks, at least once a month. I had severe allergies, so I was having asthma attacks all the time. I carried the blue Ventolin spray on my body at all times. I often had Buclavant, the orange white spray. I was constantly doing my asthma sprays throughout the day, and I just lived with the fear of having an asthma attack. I used to go to gymnastics because of the dust it was a school gym. I would have asthma attacks, and I would have to sit out. I would feel like faintish. Sometimes they would have to call my mom to come pick me up. I would fear the 12-minute run that we had to do for Canada Fitness, because I couldn't do a 12-minute run without having an asthma attack. And it wasn't that I wasn't playing hockey or doing sports, but if the grass was cut, I was done. I was going to have an asthma attack in just a couple of minutes because of the grasses and my allergies to the grasses. I knew in certain hockey rinks, if they cleaned with ammonia or chlorine, pools at different hotels, I would have asthma attacks, and those scary asthma attacks that wake you up in the middle of the night. And then I dealt with severe migraines from the time of age 6 or so. And then I would take so much Tylenol, Advil, that I would get an upset stomach, and my mom would need to take me to the hospital in order to get eventually Demerol injections to manage the pain. So this is me. This is a life that I lived of chronic disease, and ultimately led me to a natural lifestyle and learning about chiropractic. They know that the research is showing that this is, in the US research, 13 to 27% of kids are affected by chronic conditions, affecting hospital visits, affecting their lifestyle, affecting them long term. So today we're going to cover 6 chronic illnesses, 6 chronic conditions. And we're going to talk about how that affects over the lifetime, because the good news is that this is something you can help, all right? This is something you can take control of to make a difference. And, you know, my husband dealt with these conditions as well. He was, you know, I think it was 4 to 5 surgeries on his nose to deal with chronic conditions and infections. So he had sinus surgeries. I mean, this is something that's led many chiropractors, many people to a different way, a healthier lifestyle where you can take control and be able to manage things in a natural way and to live with just so much more energy and so much more happiness. So if we talk of these top conditions, we're looking at asthma. That was one of the things that I dealt with. Diabetes, which is just expanding so much among our youth. Obesity, we're looking at obesity now growing exponentially among our youth. And then, of course, if you look at the next slide, Angela, depression and suicide. You know, suicide is leading to one of the second leading causes of death among children, so there's and youth, which is so scary, and then malnutrition. So these are 6 conditions that are really, really serious, affecting all of us. If we go back to asthma, you can see that blue spray. That's what I grew up with. And it's increasing to billions and billions of children each year. It is affected by our allergies, by our immune system, by our mitochondria function. It goes right back to breastfeeding. It's affecting by the pollution. So this is, and the toxins in our regular daily environment that we're going to talk about. If we look at diabetes, type 2 diabetes, it, you know, we used to think that it was, you know, something for seniors and for adults, but now it is definitely affecting our children and increases the risk of heart disease at an early age. Obesity, increasing our risk of diabetes and heart disease, high blood pressure, cancer, and more. So serious concerns. And when we look at ADHD, ADD, I mean, this is increasing to 10% of our children in the US stats, and being on the spectrum. It used to be when I graduated from chiropractic college. Now I know that that's over 20 years ago, but it was 1 in 10,000 children. Right now, it's 1 in 20 boys. They're talking 1 in 41 children. Just think about that. That's almost 1 per classroom being labeled on that spectrum. And yes, we're getting better diagnosis and better managed to help, but now it's just so much more prevalent. And these are things that as chiropractors, we want to be able to help children. Malnutrition and depression are certainly being affected. Now, depression is something that certainly affected my family with, you know, having lost my several cousins now to suicide and several family members who have been directly affected by depression or being in a serious funk. And we've seen a lot of that increase over this last year. So our goal is to work on prevention and through all the stages of life. So we're going to talk about the different stages coming up through childhood. If you go to the next slide, we're going to talk about these different stages that the kids are going through, but then it also affects us as parents and how do we adapt as couples, as single parents, like my mother was, and to manage these different stages. So the first thing is it does start in the womb. It starts with taking care of that child as a fetus and protecting that pregnant mom. And so moms need to take care of their nutrition, their mindset, their spinal nervous system. So when we look at the nutrition, we need the right supplements. And a lot of supplements have fillers in them, but we need iron, we need folate, we want to avoid things like spina bifida and spinal concerns, zinc, iodine, vitamin D, vitamin C, calcium, fiber. We want to avoid different foods that could have mercury in them, different foods that could have heavy toxins, like some of the especially farmed fishes, unpasteurized foods, cookie dough, cheeses that are not pasteurized, or raw foods that could have infections. I know that when I was pregnant, I had different cravings, and they weren't always that healthy. I know with my son, I gained so much weight. I was 65 pounds with my son, and just with him being breech and that pressure, I did so much heartburn. I was always going for chocolate milk, like totally not healthy. So we often make some poor choices when we're pregnant, just to kind of manage the stress on our bodies. So as chiropractors, we try to talk about the nutrition, how to deal with these cravings, manage the cravings, whether it's pickles or peanut butter or cheese or grilled cheese or chocolate milk, and also how to manage the stress on our spine, the stress on our mental health, the stress on, physically, that can affect headaches and energy, and that can affect back pain. It can affect breathing. I know some of the things when my son he's such a big baby, kicking out your ribs and the pain in your ribs, you can't breathe, or dealing with the heartburn while you're pregnant, the swelling in your legs. So chiropractors help with moms being less stressed, and when they're less stressed, the baby is less stressed. And one of the ways you can test this is, I remember being pregnant, if I had orange juice, something with sugar, you could feel the baby kicking and being energized, buddy, in there, but then that would feel like almost like bruising on the inside. So chiropractors work with that spine and that nervous system, help moms to be in better shape for delivery, help the pelvis be in proper alignment, and help reduce that delivery time and overall stressful experience. Now, there are many prenatal vitamins. Chiropractic Maximize Living provides a prenatal vitamin, but the important thing there is make sure that you're looking at the quality of these vitamins, not just that they say prenatal on the box. You want to make sure that they're regulated, and they have less filler that could be causing damage for you. So this is one example that can be great. Nutritherapeutics is a great one. So there's some different options, but just be very, very careful of the different marketing schemes to promote prenatal vitamins. So when we start into those newborns, this is when they start to smile and giggle. You're not sure if they're giggling because they have gas or not, but you're just so happy to see that smile. When they recognize you and they follow you, they start to crawl or sit up. Typically, as infants, they first get their neck is stronger. And so there's a lot of damage that can happen in birth, especially if it's a traumatic birth like forceps or suction or C-section, which they know can cause 90% of damage to that top part of the neck. So we, as children, get their head stronger and they don't just have that wobble head, we want to make sure we check infants in the top part of the neck. So often an adjustment in the top part of your neck, it's just as light as you would touch your eyelid. It's just a tap, very gentle at the very top part to create stability in their neck. And then as they get stronger, their lower back gets stronger, and that's when they're able to sit up. So we start to check their pelvis and their leg lengths better. And then as they get stronger again, it's their mid back, and then they're able to start to take those first few steps. So chiropractic, we know that in that first year of life, your spine is changing over 60%. Imagine that. That's huge amount of growth, huge amount of change in that neural development, in that spinal development. And so that's when chiropractors check the spine more often in the first year of life and in those teenage years. So when we get into breastfeeding, breast is best. I'm a huge believer in breastfeeding. I've been a volunteer with the hospital, helping over 300 moms with breastfeeding. We know that breast milk has all the right fats, all the right immunoglobulins to help our babies be as healthy as possible. So please breastfeed as long as you can. I know in North American society, it used to be 3 to 6 months, but in European societies around the world, it would be 2 years. Now that women have a year off, it's gradually women are breastfeeding longer to that year mark. But as long as you can, even if it's just once a day or it's pumping, would be great. Some people do find it very challenging. That's why I've been a breastfeeding volunteer. I do recommend a lactation consultant to try and make the best choice, because it's tough at the beginning. I know with my daughter Hannah, she's premature. She wouldn't wake up. So we were cup feeding, then tube feeding. It took about 3 months of effort before she was able to breastfeed naturally. And then, of course, dealt with the nipple confusion because I was back to work. So with the pumped milk, bottled breastfed milk to the breast, you deal with that nipple confusion. My husband was great, would have to drive her back and forth to the office. I'd sometimes pump at the office and sometimes breastfeed at the office, and patients were certainly helpful through that time. But we got to know that there's a lot of toxicity and a lot of challenges with a lot of this pre-made breast milk. So if you could also make homemade breast milk, and there's lots of different recipes to try and avoid some of those toxins that are in the prefab ones. So just making sure, doing our best for as long as possible, and then if you can't, try and make your own homemade solutions. Know that what mom eats, what mom puts on her skin, what mom breathes, what mom injects goes through breast milk. So we have to be very careful. Example, I was helping one of the breastfeeding moms through the hospital, and her child was colicky and had the baby checked for chiropractic, and it wasn't a spinal condition. And it turned out that the mom, we did a journal of what she was eating, and every time the mom had strawberries, the baby became colicky. So sometimes it's even a food like strawberries, it was summertime, can affect a baby. And doing that journaling to find out which foods and which chemicals, shampoos, conditioners, perfumes can affect our child and their child's development. As we get into introducing food, this is an exciting time. But if you know little ones, first time they have pablum or foods, they often just go and they spit it out. And next thing you know, they're wearing it. Have you been through that? Even the 1-year-old's birthday, I remember my children were breastfed. They hadn't had any sugar. So we had this cake, and we thought they would want cake, for their first birthday. And we weren't going to give them much, but man, they just spit it out and played with it more, played with the cake and had it all over their face. It was a fun experience for pictures, mess to clean up, but they didn't want it. And thank goodness that their innate intelligence inside said, this isn't good for me. I've never had it before. And we were so impressed with them. So be very, very careful with the foods that we introduce. Know that often you have to introduce it, sometimes 11 to 15 times before they're going to want to receive it. To start off with non-sugary foods, more of your greens, preferably making homemade foods or going for organic at least. And starting with those greens before you get into things like the peaches, the bananas, because it's so hard to go back to the greens once we've had that sugar palette introduced. Lots of controversy about when to introduce proteins. I know my parents-in-law said, we started that at month 1. And then some people will say they started that at 1 year or 2 years. So depending on your breastfeeding schedule, there is no right answer. The longer you're breastfeeding, obviously, the later you can introduce proteins as you get those first foods. But just the most important thing is go make your own if you can. Spend that Sundays, make those ice cube trays of all the different veggies that you can put in the blender. When you're making your own veggies, blend them up and make ice cube trays, and then you can put them in Ziploc bags to make it easier for yourself and have those healthier foods for our loved ones. The next one that we want to look at is screen time. Oh my goodness, I'm seeing so much of this. I know it's easy to distract them, but it does affect their eyes, it affects their brain. So no phone is best. We do not need to know how to use a phone at under 2 years of age. And we're seeing children who are better at the phone by 5 years of age than their parents. So important to try and use things that are tactile if you can, all the different touches. You see all the toys with different textures, materials with different textures, areas where they're following games and movement with their eyes versus on a screen. So less screen time is always the best. But if you are, protect your phone with an EMF, electromagnetic frequency. You can get stickers, you can get gadgets, you can get stones to try and reduce that EMF exposure for your children. Lower the blue light if you can, blue light glasses. We're seeing that there's just more and more damage to the eyes and the brain as the brain is developing. But again, the best answer is less is best. As we start chiropractic care for children, we work with, the smallest children I've worked with were 4 pounds, Matthew and Aiden, twins. But definitely from day one right to the oldest patient I've worked with is 98. So day 1 to year 98, we have specialized techniques at that beginning years, and then we customize them along the way. We give family moms a birthing plans to help them create and ask questions for their medulla, their midwives, their lactation consultants, their OBYNs, and then we talk patients through the importance of taking care of that spine. As the twig grows, the tree grows. So we want to start with great beginnings for our children. We want to give them the best environment possible. And of course, that's taking care of that nervous system right away. So some of the warning signs that you will see in children, not trouble latching, favoring one breast over the other side, or a head tilt, acid reflux. I remember my daughter at the beginning, until we got better at breastfeeding and better alignment for her, because she was a preemie and she was an emergency C-section, so difficult beginning to her life. She would just, acid reflux could go 20 feet. She could throw up. It was pretty impressive, but also scary the first time you see it. Constipation, gas, trouble with sleeping. I know we want our kids to sleep through the night, but if they're breastfed, they typically sleep closer to 3 to 4 hours rather than that 5 to 6 or 7 hours, because they digest that food that much better and that much more quickly. I know that in the past we used to tell kids to sleep on their stomachs and turn their head, which causes huge damage to the neck. So now we know it's better to have the children sleeping on their side with a bolster to protect them, rolling over, that they won't vomit and hurt themselves. Sleeping on their sides. Respiratory concerns, recurrent ear infections. We do adjustments for the ears and help the nerves to the ears for kids. So these are poor coordination, not hitting the milestones or the development, having one arm that doesn't move as much or do the same as the other arm. These are areas and signs that we definitely want to get your child checked and spinal nervous system checked. For children and toddlers, this is when we start to see them move more, walk by themselves, wobble but get back up, more words typically. At 1, we see 1 word to 2 words. At 2, we see 2 word to 3 word sentences, and so forth. Start those smaller word sentences, and it's so exciting to see that development. But if we're not seeing that development, this can be worrisome. And so we do techniques called Turner technique, where we work on the skull, on the side of the head, the sphenoid area. That's the Broca's, Wernicke's areas, language development area. And we check the head for our younger children in the office to develop and make sure the bones in the head are working properly to help with development. So lots of specific techniques for our early toddlers. This is when we see the picky eaters. I was one of them. It's made it probably a horror system for my parents, but also with all my allergies and intolerances. And sometimes it's not just that they're a picky eater, it's that they know that makes them feel not good. So it's hard to determine, is it something that's affecting their digestion or makes them feel crummy versus something that they just need to try a little bit more often. So that's why you can have allergy testing done. It's not just through the medical system. I used to do the needles or the under the tongue testing, but now there's some great natural ways that don't have any pinpricks. Hospital visits with SCIO technique, with biofeedback technique that's excellent. Some of the ways that you can help with these picky eaters is, of course, mashing the food, hiding the foods in smoothies and mashed potatoes, being persistent a little bit at a time, trying out different recipes, taking notes of some of the things they dislike, or, of course, the things that they do like, and just aligning our expectations that I was a super picky eater, like really, really bad, would not eat onions and green peppers and mushrooms and all the things that as a vegetarian that I love today. So it does change over time, and sometimes just that patience is what we need. When we look at these toys and these toxins, realize that 1 in 3 of these toys can have toxins. They can have lead, they can have BPV, PVA, PVC, formaldehyde. That these toys can be very, very toxic if they're left in the sun. Just like you can't leave a water bottle in the sun or put a water bottle in the freezer, and that makes the plastics disintegrate. Well, I mean, I know with our family, left the toys outside, and then next thing you know, the kids got their mouth on those toys. So just be very, very careful that we're choosing quality toys like wood, we're cleaning the toys, and if the toys are left outside in the different climate, that we're making sure our kids don't have our mouths on those toys. With preschoolers, exciting time. They go to school. We start to see them learning to read, learning to play with others, interact with others, have fuller sentences, learning about grammar, learning about colors, or watching Dora and learning different languages. This is an exciting time, but also exciting time for their growth, development, and we see that we're turning towards more high tech. We're turning towards more screen time. It's just so easy to put them, whether it's in front of a TV or video, an iPad, for daycare, for a chance for mom to just have a shower and get a break, time to make dinner or do the laundry. So just so important that we're seeing that even 2 to 5-year-olds are getting way too many hours. Some people are saying in some studies up to 30 hours a week. That's like 5 hours of screen time a day. And we're seeing this challenge through the pandemic is just too much screen time affecting children's eyes. That's why we encourage the blue light glasses, changing the blue light on a phone, even the brightness on a phone. I know for me, reading off the screen or reading off my phone is horrible, can give me a headache. The challenge is more important when you don't get a symptom, but it's still affecting us. So just being very, very careful of that, the EMFs, the blue light, and looking towards still getting kids reading. That is still better, reading, looking at picture books, playing time, and getting out in nature, getting outdoors still way, way more important. The goal is to get outside 3 hours, an hour to 3 hours a day, guys, an hour to 3, and that includes in the winter and in the heat, getting outside to get some sun time, physically active and moving, 3 hours a day. And if we've learned anything, if you look at the next slide, Angela, it says outdoor play. We're looking at getting kids moving, because right now, especially over this last year, only 5% of children are getting that daily requirement of moving 3 hours a day. I know many adults are not getting moving 3 hours a day. So know that our children need to be running around the house. That's normal, folks. We want them playing tag. We want them playing hide and seek. We want them in the sandbox on the playgrounds. That's how they're going to develop their muscles, their joints, their spinal health, helps them exercise, maintain a healthy weight, which avoids some of those concerns that we saw of depression, obesity, help manage with concerns like ADD, ADHD. So super important to just get outside, get moving. For bedtime, we need regular routines. And everybody's routine is different. I know my children, because I was working late, I had them going to bed later. But we need a routine where there's a regular bedtime, and that we know it takes time to get into that routine. So plan that hour before, whether it's a bath time, reading time, prayer time, gratefulness time. But children do need that quality, quiet sleep. You might need those blackout shades. You might need different forms of soothing music. I encourage getting kids used to sleeping with noise, because that's the real world. But making sure that we have that schedule and consistent each night. As we get into school age children, again, an exciting time as they're able to discuss their feelings, and they're able to deal with disappointment. And also, a champion is the one who gets up, like learns how to deal with failure, with challenges, how to be accepted, how to not be accepted, how to focus for longer periods of time and be more independent and choosing their clothes. This is time when in our family we had a race to who could brush their teeth and get their teeth brushed sooner, who could get in their PJs sooner. We would, give them different chores, whether it's, to put the dishes away, or to clean the bathroom, or to get them involved with vacuuming, dusting, especially those low areas, but giving them little jobs that they can be proud of, and start to create that independence. This is a time also when there's a little bit of nervousness going back to school and going to school. And this is something we're going to see way more of, where kids haven't been interacting with other kids, where they're scared potentially of being around others. I've seen kids at the office that want to hide behind their parents. They're nervous about being around groups of people, especially large groups of people. So this is something over the summer to slowly interact and get our children used to being around other people, going to the grocery store with you, starting to create camps or getting involved with smaller groups, and then learning that communication. And then this is an exciting time to go to school, and then it's a great thing to meet new friends. This is an awesome opportunity versus a scary opportunity, but the time to have these discussions now. One of the biggest challenges is childhood obesity, and it is growing. 1 in 5 children in the States, but it's happening in Canada too. As teenagers, it's getting even worse. And we know that if there's obesity at a young age, it's so much harder to change in later life, and it increases our risk of disease and obesity later in life. So super challenges with making health. Thank you. All right. The challenge with lunch, I know we're super busy as families today trying to balance everything, and then try and balance healthier lunches for our kids, but Lunchables are not the thing. Make your own Lunchable. I know my kids loved everything separate in different containers. They didn't want things touching because they were picky, but we would have little containers of fruit, not large amounts of fruit, not large amounts of crackers and cheese, but little containers of everything. And look towards being careful, some of these hidden sugars and things like snackables, fruit snacks, fruit leathers, applesauce, crackers, looking at challenges with different energy drinks, juice boxes, a no-no, Gatorade, no-no, energy bars, energy drinks, protein bars, granola bars. Often these have a lot of hidden sugars and hidden chemicals. And we want to look towards preparing, whether it's on Sunday night and Wednesday night, so you're preparing sort of 3 days and 2 days, and getting all of those things ready ahead. Or for me, it was a morning time routine. And yes, it took time. It took getting ready earlier in the morning, and preparing extra food the night before so that you could have leftovers for the next day, whether it's in healthier proteins, cutting up the chicken into cubes or meats into cubes, but things that are grass-fed versus, what I grew up, which is horrible, the bologna, the salami sandwich. Looking at things like hummus, seeds, looking at healthier carbs, vegetables, maybe with a little bit of salad dressing to dip, but not huge amounts of dip, berries, apple slices, coconut wraps, pickles, healthier fats like olives or hard-boiled eggs, sprouted seeds, avocados, and very important, super, super important is water. Increasing that water intake. Sometimes we're seeing children with these little water bottles. It's going to be harder to get those filled up today, getting back into school in the future. So very important to have, ability to have a good quality water and making sure our children are getting enough water throughout the day, every single day. There's lots of supplements for kids. It's confusing. I grew up on the Flintstones, which are full of garbage and fillers. So make sure you have quality products. They need their multivitamins. There are natural products for detox, for probiotics that help with their digestion, for vitamin D, for essential oils. These are some of the things that my children grew up with. For teenagers, a lot of people say these are challenging times. They want to be independent. They want it their way. Their emotions are higher. They're trying to figure out themselves and their goals. The stress of choosing a university, the stress of doing well in school, learning about the black and the white, the right and the wrong, and the gray zones, how to manage friendships, how to manage bullying that's not just now in person, but is, happened to my own daughter on social media. I remember she was walking beside a boy, and then all of a sudden, people were making all sorts of comments, and yet she knew that at figure skating, she'd be holding a boy's hand to dance. So it didn't make sense to her. So there's just so much challenges for our teenagers and choices about different types of drug or substance abuse, alcohol. So all of us are dealing with these challenges for our teenagers, and we want to be able to support them through it and help them make some of these healthier choices. We know that school highly influences them and creates a lot of stress to just try and fit in person, fit in socially on social media, to keep up with their snaps, their streaks, all of this new stress that we didn't used to have. So helping them learn your stress management techniques. And if you're having a challenge, talk to the chiropractor, because this is when they're growing so much, physically with their spine, another 20%, mentally and emotionally. And as chiropractors, we love to see our teenagers and help them through these challenging times, to provide another ear that's not mom and dad, for them to either to be someone to listen to them, to their concerns, or to just provide that friendly advice. This is also a time when their metabolism is so fast. I have an 18-year-old son, and he can eat 6 meals a day. And if he does eat junk food, he wouldn't notice it in his weight. So this is a time when often many people, teenagers are eating junk food, and they don't see it physically in gaining weight, but it's still causing inflammation and affecting their moods, affecting their energy overall. And they're going for it because it's cheap. It's easier because their friends are going for, the McDonald's or the Burger King or the crap that's out there that's, sugary drinks or energy drinks. So just being super, super cautious to have these conversations early, and how these foods can affect you mentally and physically, even if you can't see the damage on the outside. For chiropractic, we're working from children, right from babies all the way up to our teenagers, looking at the sporting injuries, looking at the birthing injuries, colic, how it's affecting the nervous system, affects the bladder, breathing concerns, the ears, the eyes, and dealing with that spinal stress. So we have techniques for all families. We have children's tables, instrument activator adjusting, that can be more gentle or more comfortable for the children. And we try and find those techniques are specific for them to remove that tension overall, remove the pressure and the irritation on those nerves. Some of the reasons that you will see that I could give you an idea that there's poor spinal alignment, is uneven shoe wear, uneven leg lengths, poor posture, a low shoulder or constant head tilt or the head forward, not sleeping properly, sporting injuries, just working out hard like gymnastics and dance. Definitely want to make sure you're getting spinal check, not breathing great or snoring, not getting the exercise, so it's more sedentary. These are areas, asthma, that we want to make sure that children and teenagers get those spinal checkups, because as you see in this spine, the nerves control everything. They control every organ, from your eyes, your ears, your nose, your throat, to your lungs, to your heart, to your digestion, to your bladder, to your sex organs, fertility, and all the way down to your legs. The nerves control everything. And if we have damage on that spinal cord right from the beginning, like my daughter who was a C-section or forceps, we want to make sure we're looking at how that damage could be affecting the spine. And then we get into the car seats and that falling asleep with our head tilted, or the different carriers, the bouncers, the walkers. So this is a time when every child deserves to have a spinal checkout. So I hope that you got lots and lots of great information. But if you have questions, please ask. We love to help families and love it when we start to see 3 or 4 generations in the office. But stay tuned with our upcoming wellness talks about those leg cramps, so painful that they can be, or it can be in your stomach or your shoulder, your arm, your neck. Increasing your energy in the mornings, dealing with creating that armor, that defense, and protecting our bodies, and then how to deal with a gluten-free diet, something that I follow and I find that makes a huge difference, and certainly is so much easier to be gluten-free today than it ever was before. But you certainly want to do it in a healthy way, because not all gluten-free means it's healthy. So stay tuned with us. Please do a review. We appreciate those. That helps others to learn about these free information sessions, and share them with others. They are free, and we're just doing that to give back, as our mission is to make a difference, to help families live a healthier life in a natural way.